Hi there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from the Waipara Valley in New Zealand, South Island here. This is Mud House's, it's a single vineyard, The Mound Vineyard, Waipara Valley Riesling from 2022. And again, I have to thank the New World Wine Awards for supplying us with this wine to taste. You can see its gold medal there. In fact, the Mound Riesling was the Champion Aromatic White wine in the 2023 New World Wine Awards, so I'm expecting that in a set of awards that is designed for supermarket wines, and therefore the criteria are that everything should be under $25. That's New Zealand dollars, not US dollars, so these are relatively good value for money wines, that the Champion Aromatic Wine should be offering great value for money, and in fact their classification says that this should be under $20 a bottle. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. Hopefully it'll be a lovely example of the elegant aromatic styles that can be produced in the Waipara. Mud House was founded by John and Jennifer Joslin back in 1996. Evidently they'd set out to travel the world, got as far as New Zealand, evidently one of their earlier stops, fell in love with the place, stayed here, set up a vineyard, and they took Mud House from being about 300 cases production a year to somewhere in the region of 80,000, and that was 10 years later in 2006. But at that stage there was quite heavy pressure on grape supply, and they felt that they couldn't take the business any further. They were having difficulty buying in grapes in sufficient volumes to make the brand work. So they sold to a company called New Zealand Wine Estates, and New Zealand Wine Estates had vineyard holdings throughout the South Island. They had just over 100 hectares in the Ure Valley in Marlborough. They had about 90 hectares in Central Otago, and they had 93 hectares in the Waipara Valley. These were sort of divided so that in Marlborough they were growing Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, maybe a little bit of Pinot. In Central Otago they were growing Pinot Noir, and here in the Waipara Valley they were growing aromatics. So I believe this vineyard was planted in 2002 with 75% of the vines being Riesling and the balance being Pinot Gris. The vineyard here, as I say, 93 hectares. It's terraced, gravel soils, they're low vigour, free draining soils. The location here is within the Canterbury growing region, and we're about 65 kilometres north of Christchurch on the east side of the South Island. And here the vineyards are sheltered from the cold winds coming from the Pacific. In fact, they benefit from warmer winds coming off New Zealand's southern Alps, which actually extend the growing season, so that the Waipara Valley has one of New Zealand's longest growing seasons. And that means that over this long growing period you get very good flavour development, but because it doesn't get too hot you get quite good acid retention as well. Thus varieties such as Riesling work well here. The situation with regard to grape supply obviously changed because in 2015 Accolade, a large internationally operating wine producer, bought the brand. In doing so they actually allowed the vineyards to be sold to a Hong Kong based company with long-term agreements to buy the fruit back from them. So the fruit sources remain as they had been under the previous ownership. 2022 vintage started off with actually a fairly overcast, humid summer with high rainfall. Thankfully, a more stable, warm, dry autumn enabled the grapes to ripen fully and for harvest to take place with healthy grapes. There wasn't an issue with mould. Fruit was finally picked in April with lovely concentrated flavours but retaining zingy acidity. Fruit was hand-picked, it was whole bunch pressed. Whole bunch pressing gives you quite clean juice. That juice was then allowed to settle for a couple of days and was racked off any solids that had fallen out of suspension there. Fermentation took place in stainless steel tanks. It took place at quite cool temperature, so there was a long fermentation that would prevent aromas being boiled off, being lost during that ferment. Once the desired balance of sweetness was reached, it was chilled, it was racked, it was fined, it was filtered and then put straight to bottle. So there's no aging, no influence of oak or anything like that. It's really pure fruit aromatic. Now the balance that was looked for has left sweetness in the wine. This is a medium sweet wine, and that means that the alcohol is only 10%, according to the label anyway. So let's have a look at it and see what we make of it. My initial impression is of a very pale wine, maybe a touch of yellow in the colour there, but yellow to green. Swirling it, It's not at all viscous, it's not really clinging to the glass at all, despite its sweetness. So let's see what the aromas are like, shall we? The aromas are lifted, they're delicate, they're quite pungent. There's an underlying liminess running through the whole bouquet, but over the top of that there's a lifted, floral, white blossom, lime blossom, maybe sort of slightly lifted, sherbety notes. There's certainly a very citric note, but also some slight mineral notes, almost like almost a chalky touch. The aromas are relatively pungent, so let's have a taste. Trying that, I'm met by a wine that has medium sweetness. It also has lovely freshness. There's almost a sort of a steely, minerally clean acidity. I'm salivating as a result. The fruit is limey and fresh. It's reasonably well focused. The sweetness is a little bit sugary sweet. Often you'll find on Riesling that it's a little bit more refined and elegant than this is. This sort of seems, as I say, a little bit sucrose in its note, and it's adding a little bit of roundness to the palate. But that's all I could fault this on, because the freshness of the acidity is giving lovely length. There's a minerally clean and citric fresh notes that are lasting really quite well. The sweetness almost has a sort of a slightly honeyed touch on the finish. I don't think this is necessarily showing notes of botrytis, which might give a honeyed flavour. It's just quite delicate. But right to the finish, those limey notes and some of those lifted blossom notes are still showing. This is a lovely, fresh, youthful wine. The notes I've seen suggest that this could probably be aged for 5 years. I would think that was reasonable. I would be interested to see how it develops over that time. But certainly it has good freshness, and that would suggest the ability to age. It would be lovely to see elegant primary fruit start to sort of just round out a little bit more, perhaps gain some more intense sort of honeyed notes, a little bit of sort of waxiness in its style. But that's a very enjoyable wine, offering a nice drink at great value for money. I think it's a good illustration of the elegance that you can get from wines from Waipara, a region that perhaps isn't anywhere near as well known as Marlborough or Martinborough or Central Otago, but for aromatic wines is slowly making a name for itself. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you found the tasting interesting. If you've enjoyed it, I hope you'll press the like button below. I hope you'll share it with your friends. I hope you'll leave any comments you've got in the box below. I hope you'll sign up and follow us on YouTube. That would be fantastic. But most importantly, I hope you'll manage to make some time to join us again very soon for another online tasting. Bye for now.